All right, everyone. So welcome to the J. Scott Ascension. Today, we have a great guest by the name of Niko House. He is a political analyst as well as an independent journalist, works for RT Media, also is the founder of MCSC Productions, I believe, or is it Studio?
Network,
Network,
network.
yeah, the
Yep.
MCSC network. So, and welcome to the J. Scott Ascension. This is where we're going to be discussing politics, economic issues, social issues, health issues, pretty much just a variety of topics and, whatever kind of piques my interest. So, thanks for, joining the show, Niko. I know we've been going back and forth a few days. You have a lot going on with the reporting happening from DC and everything else. So glad you can finally make it on. So
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, man. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of days, man. For good reasons. It's better to be too busy than too bored. So
definitely. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start out just by discussing, because I think there's a lot of great issues, a lot of great points about what happened over the weekend that we can touch on in this conversation. So can you tell everyone about your experience over in DC reporting on it's the J6 protest you went to cover, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was actually called the title of that particular protest was called the First Amendment protest.
Okay.
It, like I said, the media actually presented it as if everybody that was going to be there was a partisan Trump supporter hell bent on committing a quote unquote resurrection part two, or I keep saying resurrection, insurrection part two. And by the way, there was no insurrection the first time. Like you can call out the violence and be upset about that and say what you want to say about, but like that wasn't an insurrection, y'all. I'm sorry, but like you're not gonna have a bunch of conservatives come to an insurrection without any guns. Like it's just not how that shit works, bro. So first of all, but that's what the media presented it as. There was even, I don't know if you heard about the night before, police found a pickup truck with a swastika paint on the back of the window and a machete in the passenger seat.
A machete
So that's
to
how we
take
knew
over
all
the
the
United
weapons.
States Capitol.
Bruh. It's like,
That's funny.
first of all, some dude in the pickup truck was riding around with a swastika on the back of his truck, like spray paint on the back of his window. Like it would have hit social media at that point. Like, it's just corny shit that they were pulling. That kind of like made me think, okay, maybe this isn't going to be exactly what I thought it was. So very fortunately for me, RT sent me there to get the real story. First of all, there was so much media there, like mainstream media, independent media, foreign media, et cetera, et cetera. And they were literally there for blood. They were craving it. They were waiting for it. Even in reality, even the cops were waiting for it. And the media, once the first speaker came up and said, this is a nonpartisan protest. This is about unity. This is about bringing attention to the corruption and cruelty of the criminal justice system and the prison industrial complex. All of a sudden, the media was like, oh, this ain't going to be one of those. Like over half left immediately. Yep. So it means they weren't there to get the story. They were there to sell a story.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were hyping it up in the weeks coming up, to it saying how it was going to be, like you said, another January 6th, like invasion of the Capitol. And then it was just pretty much like, a blowover. Like it wasn't as crazy of a turnout, like, as they were originally saying. And the people that were there for unifying reasons. Like I remember I actually just watched coverage from Breaking Points about it, and they were pointing out how and your coverage too, and I know like it looked like there were nearly as much media and police there as there were actual protesters. Was that your
By
feeling?
The end of the protest, there were absolutely at least as much media and police there, primarily because of the presence of the police. Believe it or not, the more they actually called for unity and bipartisan cooperation, literally more police showed up. I bullshit you not. And like the SWAT showed up out of nowhere, full riot gear.
Wow.
We were like, there's a bunch of old people and kids here. What are y'all doing? And in fact, here's what was peculiar. This person showed up on a bike. It was liberal, screaming all kinds of obscenities and, all kind of racists and all kinds of shit. And I'm looking like, man, I don't feel like he qualified to really make these assertions without actually talking to anybody. I mean, just as a Black person that you think is, you know, a victim of this racism from these particular people who were, by the way, super nice to me. In fact, the entire day I was getting compliments about my clothes. So they were really cool. But this guy was yelling these obscenities and actually provoking the people at the protest, and the cops actually protected him and escorted him out. Very
Interesting.
reminiscent
So
of what we saw them do to some of the Proud Boys who were, you know, yelling obscenities and antagonizing BLM protesters.
yeah,
So
I
like,
think yeah, even during all those you know, BLM protests earlier this year, I saw a lot of videos on social media that didn't get as much coverage in the mainstream about agent, quote unquote, agent provocateurs, you know, who may have been kind of sent in there to agitate people and kind of start things out. And I think
to that
that's
point,
something they do a lot.
so to that point, while I was interviewing, actually while I was live with RT, there was a guy behind me who got pulled, like ran up on by the cops. They said he had a gun in his waistband, and the cops pulled. And he like, well, are you like, who are you? What are you doing here? He's, I'm just here. I'm just here. And they say like, they start patting him down. And they pull out his badge. Yeah. And they're like, are you undercover? He's like, are you undercover? And he's looking like 90 more, fucking asshole. Like,
That reminds
bruh.
me of the
So like,
memes. Yeah.
but it makes you wonder though, because like there was no reason, one, for a protest. Like, the protest had a permit, which really indicates that the person who initiated the protest and applied for it what had no intention on allowing it to get violent, because his name, his contact information, his reputation is on that
Yeah.
permit, and anybody
Yeah.
can find him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
clearly he wasn't going to go there, you know, trying to start something. And so what it looks like is that like there were people put there specifically that just in case it did get big enough and get enough attention, that something could potentially pop off, whether or not it was actually done by somebody who was from the actual protest. Because most of the people there, like I said, were, you know, working class, older. They skewed a little bit older. A lot of them were there with their kids, and damn near everybody else in media and or fed.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, man. So, and that just kind of plays into the whole, you know, radicalization we're seeing from the media. If you look at mainstream media, um, like CNN, MSNBC, they all tell you anyone who's on the right is irrational. You can't deal with them. You can't talk to them. You know, they're lost causes. And then if you look at some of the main figures on the right, they're saying the exact same thing about people on the left. They're saying people on the left are all communists. You can't deal with them. You can't talk to them. You know, they want to kill your grandma, you know, and take away your health care and all this stuff. So,
by the way, just ironically, I feel like 98% of both leftists and neocons have no idea what communism actually is. Like, I guess probably because I'm not a communist or a capitalist, I could probably see I could clearly see that neither of them know any, like, have no idea what they're talking about. But like, they use that, and both sides use that, right, to their advantage.
yeah, it's kind of like the word conspiracy theorist. When someone says something you don't like, these are blanket labels you can throw at people to dismiss, you know, anything they have to say. Like, so, yeah, they throw that around a lot. So, yeah, so, yeah, so as far, you know, and this, it's great that you're out there actually, you know, shedding light on what's really happening on the ground. And just to give you a little bit of background, the way I actually found out about you and discovered your reporting was actually through another independent media. So I was a member of the Young Turks network once upon a time, aka a subscriber to them. Since then, I've gotten a bit more disappointed, you know, with the direction the coverage went. And I remember seeing Jimmy Dore on Aggressive Progressives, and I always wondered to myself, why isn't this guy on the main show? Like, you know, he's so good. I would love to see him on the main show. Yeah, a little bit more. But then Jimmy Dore left the network. I kind of wondered, you know, like what was going on? Like, why did he leave? I kept saying to myself, they should just, you know, continue joining forces, because, you know, like they both seem to agree on like 90% of stuff. I didn't really understand, you know, at the time what was happening. And now just seeing the authoritarian push, you know, from places like even the Young Turks who seem to be pro vaccine mandate, you're seeing some of these places on the left like kind of walk lock in step with MSNBC and CNN and the rest of those, especially when it comes to foreign policy issues. So I've been
hell, and not even just foreign policy, man. Foreign policy, like the mandates, gun control. You know,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
revealing because people. I was talking to a friend yesterday. She's like in a band. She actually was kind of like a whistleblower who called out Taylor Swift's like manager. It was like he's a predator, and
Oh
it's
wow,
known that he's a predator.
wow,
And he sexually assaulted her, and like Taylor Swift basically like kind of threw her under the bus.
wow.
Um, and several other people threw her under the bus too. And she was talking about the fact she kind of feels crazy because like she's like a leftist, but she's like, I feel like everybody is like telling me that I'm moving further right. And I'm like, no, that's actually not what's happening. What we're actually realizing is that a lot of these liberals have always been further right than you have been, and we're actually moving further and further to the left because our positions are the same positions of the Black Panthers, the same positions of Malcolm X, Maurice Bishop, these great thought leaders who knew that the CIA was inherently bad, the FBI was inherently bad, the U.S. government was inherently bad, the FDA, all these like these mandates, the authoritarian mandates, the foreign policy that we have that does primarily disenfranchise Black and brown people. Like we're just espousing the exact same rhetoric they were espousing, but somehow that has led to people saying that we're the conservatives now. It's
Yeah,
like, no, that's not the case.
and that's why I've actually tried to move away from, like a lot of these labels, like as I'm talking to people. And if you actually break down like my beliefs on a lot of economic policies, for the most part, I tend to be on the left. I think, Medicare for all is something, that was needed a long time ago. I think the minimum wage obviously needs to be higher, but a lot of these
and those aren't even considered. I don't even think those are considered leftist policies anymore because,
yeah,
like,
but
you go look at the all the polls from this last 2 years. Everybody thinks the minimum wage should go up, and everybody 90% of the country, not literally, but like 75% of the country believes in universal health care. So it's like,
and with conservatives, and that's what I realized. It's literally how you tell them the policies sometimes that it's the way this polling is done. Like if you ask them if they think, we should do universal healthcare for everyone, they'll say yes. But then if you ask them if do you support the government taking away your healthcare, and you frame it like that, then they're all going to say that they don't support it. So there's so many tricks done with the polling to make people think that, people who claim to be on the right and claim to be on the left disagree on a lot, when in reality, they do agree on, a majority of issues. Now, when it comes to the social issues, I can definitely say, there's a bit more division there. And even sometimes
I don't even know if there's as much division there as I used to think, man. It's like most of the time, a lot of conservatives get mad at the media narrative and then what they see online. But when I be talking to them, I'm like, like the majority of people are not like this. Like, there's just a lot of dumbest motherfuckers who be talking online. Like, the average person has a pretty middle ground, common sense take on almost any of these issues when it comes to abortion, police brutality. I mean, I know a lot of conservatives who are adamantly against the police brutality that Black people have been experiencing, especially, the heightened level of it over the last couple of years. But what they get upset about is, like, for example, the uplifting of something like Antifa while pretending like they're this version of Antifa, not the one from the Mussolini era, because that's a whole different thing. This is a different version of it, which probably CIA co-opted because the CIA is unoriginal as fuck, and they seem to pop up everywhere the Proud Boys do. You know what I'm saying? The Proud Boys pop up everywhere they do, but they don't like the fact that you can uplift that organization, talk about they're not organized, give them no accountability, pretend to be against fascism, and then when Joe Biden says that, Antifa is not an organization, it's an idea, effectively co-signing for the organization, people are like, yeah, that's a good thing, right? No, it's not. The moment that Joe Biden co-signed for your organization, it was never meant to usurp any type of power, period.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of thing that polarizes people, man. Like when they see stuff like that, they automatically assume everyone on the left, is supporting Antifa, and it's really not the case. So
yeah, I'm anti-fascist, but like in the same sense of like the anti-fascists from like the 30s and the 40s, like they didn't put masks on, In fact, in those movements, in those organizations, like the Black military vets were like literally the leaders. That's actually where the Black Power vets came from, was from the original Antifa. So it's like, like you don't wear, we know what their names are, because there's a level of accountability that is required for a movement like that to be successful, especially when you consider some of the shit that was going on during these protests, where you got these white boys blowing up buildings and or like are fucking up buildings, and then you got the cops, obviously the feds, dressing like them, getting away with it because they can wear masks too. And so if one of these dudes breaks a building or a window in the building and you, a Black man, get arrested, you think that white boy with that mask on is going to come and say, "No, officer, that was me"?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
The rioting and the looting, again, just the agent provocateurs, over there causing the trouble, to blame it, like on the people that are there. So you've seen that happen throughout time. So it's the same.
Meanwhile, on the other side,
yes,
on the other side of that fence, you had Proud Boys, where they made sure that there was a name that you could tie to Proud Boys, which is Gavin McInnes, and then who's the co-founder of Vice News, whose father, by the way, is a defense. He's a defense contractor with the Canadian government. And subsequently, what's that boy's name? My man, the dude who got arrested, he got arrested basically after Tario, his name, Tario. Tario got arrested 2 days before January 6th with two high-power magazines. Surprise, surprise. When he got arrested and they went to court, his lawyer was like, "Well, hold on, guys. Let's not give him any hard time. Remember, he's an informant for the FBI. So we should cut him some slack."
Yeah.
So they made sure to attach faces to the Proud Boys that they could use them to say, everybody in the Proud Boys like this. And then they made sure to not attach anybody's face or any organization to the Antifa. So there's like this level of anonymity so you can't really hold anybody accountable, and it allows people to be dressed up, covered up, and then you can easily slip feds in and perhaps a few stacks of bricks, to be thrown every now and then. So
exactly. So yeah,
but the hypocrisy, man, that's what people really get mad about on both sides, right? But for me, and I would be interested to know if you feel the same way. For me, I don't like this. There's this idea amongst leftists that they're actually smarter than conservatives, right? They actually believe that they're the morally altruistic ones, that they're the ones who kind of have this clarity on what's right and what's wrong. And yet, so from that perspective, it's like, well, then why do y'all get it so egregiously and obnoxiously wrong? Like, and I hold you to a higher standard because you claim to care about all these people, and then you actively cape and stand for politicians or policies that directly harm those people. Whereas conservatives don't promise me a goddamn thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not promising me shit. As long as they, and honestly, I don't really care. Like, I don't need them promising me anything. I just, how most Black people just like, look, we don't need you giving us shit. We need to just get the fuck out of the way. That's all we asking.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. There's definitely that sense of superiority with a lot of people on the left, and they feel like, that they are better than people on the right. But when it comes down to it, that's selectively applied. And it's really, in my opinion, just different experiences in life that lead people to believe different things. So if you look at like, say, for example, this vaccine situation, the one of the most highly unvaccinated groups, like you pointed out earlier, happens to be Black people. Yet now they're pushing mandatory vaccinations for people to go to work. And at the same time, they're complaining about people not getting back into the workforce, but they're trying to mandate like mandatory vaccination. So it's like, and if you look at the science and really break down the science behind this vaccine, a lot of people don't realize this, but the data from Israel actually shows that there was about a 12% drop in vaccination rate for people above the age of 90. So in the span of 3 months, the vaccination rate for people above the age of 90 in Israel went from about 93% to about 80%. So what that means is the only way that mathematically,
go ahead.
The only way mathematically that could have happened is if half of the vaccinated population died, while there was a negligible amount of the unvaccinated population that died in that same time period. But guess what? Because they're not dying from COVID, it doesn't make the it doesn't make the headlines, and no one talks about it. So no one really is talking about the
Well,
complete
also,
picture of the science.
there's also one other factor that has to be considered though. So in
What's that?
Israel, remember they made it so that you had to have 3 vaccines to be considered fully vaccinated.
But that hasn't actually taken effect yet. I don't
I
think
thought that
it
already
kicks
took effect
in
and they're working on 4 now.
there. It hadn't taken effect when that stat came out
Oh,
yet
when that was
to that
passed.
point.
Oh, when that was put out. Got you.
Exactly. And the
Ooh,
reason I
that's
know that
crazy then.
And the reason I know that is because they actually spoke about that at the most recent FDA meeting this past Friday,
The
where they were
8-hour one?
discussing whether or not to produce, yes, where they were
Right.
discussing whether or not to approve those boosters. So it's like no one can explain this. So on the left, they claim to be the pro-science ones, and they claim to have the moral superiority, yet it's really selective science. And it's they're I want to say just as authoritarian as some of the, as they claim the people on the right are. It's just
Neocons,
for
right?
their own people. It's like now that their guy's in office, Joe Biden, they're just as authoritarian as some of the people were when Trump was in office. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you see the same problem on both sides and different people being exposed to different facts. So I
Yeah.
agree with you completely about that sense of superiority. And like it's just not true, in a lot of situations. So
And the black people that are like they make it well known that they're uncomfortable with the amount of black people who are unvaccinated. They never stop reminding us.
yeah,
Yet simultaneously, when they talk about who's against these mandates, they try to pretend as if it is a black or it is a white male conservative selfish thing. Like it's weird as shit. And it's like,
yeah,
well, hold on. If y'all admit that there's a whole lot of black people who are unvaccinated, which probably means they don't want to be subject to mandates that could
yeah.
take them out of their jobs, close their businesses, interrupt their kids' education, etc. Why wouldn't black people be included in those people, in those being considered as vaccine hesitant, or at least in high numbers, or mandated? And when they do talk about black people being vaccine hesitant, they always try to frame it as if it's a poverty issue.
Or
We don't have
an issue of
access.
them being uninformed
Like we
when
don't
in
have access. I'm
reality.
like, bitch, we got access to CVS. It's right down the street and it's free. Like, come on, bro. Like, don't give
Yeah,
me that shit. Like,
yeah.
we got access to get vaccines, guys. Like, shit's hard, but y'all giving it away for free. Y'all damn near robbing black people. Like, it ain't that. Come on, bro.
You
It
seen
what it but knowing that they don't, but they are fully aware because they mention how vaccine hesitant black people are.
yeah,
That
it,
which means that, and they also talk about the poverty aspect of the black economy and how unemployment is rising and skyrocketing. But you're gonna pass these mandates anyway.
yeah,
And we know that small businesses, over half of them were decimated
yeah, yeah.
during COVID.
It's been a
But like,
giant
so you know
transfer
that
of
they're
wealth.
vaccine hesitant. You're putting these mandates on these small businesses and these jobs. You already know what the unemployment rate looks like for black people, and yet you're then going to put them in a situation where we make more black people unemployed, more black small businesses close down, which would then put people in more impoverished circumstances, where you are then more likely to contract a serious illness like COVID.
Exactly, because you can't even afford to get some of the early outpatient treatment. That's been shown to like actually fight it. But as far as your point on the marketing thing, it's really a branding thing, because they want to, in one sense, they paint it as it's only the quote unquote redneck Trump supporters who don't want to take the vaccine, but they don't want to talk down to black people, because at the end of the day, like when it comes to culture and popularity, we all know like a lot of black influencers have an oversized, like influence on the overall culture of the country. So it's all
Hell,
a
I can't even
marketing.
say they won't talk down to. We saw they did to Nikki. I mean,
Yeah, that's
it
true.
was like, you want to give an example. People want to hear an example of why black people don't have a single reason to trust anything coming out of these people's mouths. So everybody remembers the anecdotal tweet that Nikki put out where she
Yes.
talked about her cousin's friends swollen testicles after
Yes.
getting the COVID vaccine shot.
Yes.
At the end of her tweet, she was very clear. She said, "This is your choice. Don't be bullied into making a decision." That made all hell break loose for some reason. Just, hey, it's your choice. God forbid in America you have choices, because that's
They all,
anti-American now, right? So what Twitter put out. First of all, they immediately began to ridicule the idea that this was even a possibility. Joy-Ann Reid comes out and says she's damaging the Black community and potentially going to cause people to die because of her tweet saying that it's a choice. Twitter then puts out an international headline saying there's absolutely, health officials say that there's absolutely no evidence that COVID-19 vaccinations are linked in any way to a single instance of swollen testicles, except for, according to the National Vaccine Information Institute, they and the CDC or theirs, there have been 66 examples of swollen testicles directly linked to the COVID-19. 66 on their website.
But, yeah,
on the website, and they literally looked at their own website, was like, yeah, we're gonna ignore that shit though.
Yeah, the thing is, and no one is going to take the time that you took to actually read into it. They just look at the headline. CDC says it's false, and then they keep going. So, like, because people aren't doing that research, really, the headline is the most important part, of a lot of these articles.
I'm gonna give you another example. So I don't know if you remember when Lamar Jackson came out and said that he's probably not going to get the vaccine or he ain't made a decision, and then came down on him. Now, granted, nowhere near as much as one Cam Newton. And, they literally were trying to say that the reason he didn't make the team is largely due to the fact that he didn't get the vaccine. And there was a hyper focus on Lamar Jackson because obviously, for those of you who don't know, he was an MVP 2 years ago, was highly scrutinized coming out of the draft, very reminiscent of how Cam Newton was treated. They were saying that he didn't have the IQ, that he didn't have the arm, that he couldn't throw. It was all kinds of bullshit. And then he takes the team with nobody and takes them to the playoffs twice in a row. Because of their eccentric styles of play and their personalities, and they've become pretty significant idols in the Black community and Black athletes in general. Now, for the last 2 weeks before Cam got cut, they kept pushing this idea that Cam was being selfish and not thinking about the league and the team because he's not getting the COVID vaccine, and that it was spread throughout the team. And then if that happens, then the league's gonna have to postpone games, and they're just not going to put up with that. Now, mind you, at this point, we know that it's primarily the Delta variant that's being spread. We know that these vaccines currently don't stop that shit from spreading at all, not even a little bit. We also know that even if that wasn't the case, the vaccine didn't stop the regular COVID virus from spreading. But yet they said this relentlessly over and over and over again. Now, what they did not talk about, first of all, is that once Cam was cut, a week fucking later, Saints have 8 staff and players all vaccinated get COVID, which is, by the way, they were mostly assistant coaches, which is why you saw the Saints take the L they took this weekend, because their coaches weren't there the entire week. So,
and guess what? And that it isn't like that just started happening. I saw that exact same headline about the Yankees back in, I want to say, like, it had to be like April or something like that, April or May.
But luckily, the baseball players never claimed that it was like mandatory because they were trying to stop spreading. They were going to play regardless. They didn't care. They already made that clear before. But then, like, Belichick himself even said, I don't know. He was saying that I don't know why we would cut him because of that. Because like a bunch of players have gone in the COVID protocol after getting vaccinated. And it kind of almost like was a problem, because I don't know if you recall Urban Meyer's then coming out and saying, yeah, we had to take that into consideration. And the league had to come in like an ego, like, no, that was never the thing. That he's lying. Nobody took any consideration of being vaccinated. And it's like, yeah, but you did. People were getting cut, and Urban Meyer's admitted it. Now, going back to Cam and Lamar specifically, now once Cam got cut, one, of course, you didn't see anything about that Saints story in any of the morning talk shows after it was such a big deal about Cam not being vaccinated. So like once he got cut, all of a sudden the conversation of being vaccinated was no longer an issue. Now, what they don't talk about is the fact that Andy Dalton will not reveal whether or not he got vaccinated. Starter, Kirk Cousins, $100 million man, will not reveal whether or not he got vaccinated. Starter, Sam Darnold, starter. Even Dak Prescott won't tell anybody
all across
because they didn't get it. And they're gonna get special treatment. Like, let's be honest, like they're quarterbacks. But Dak Prescott, for all intents and purposes, he's not a black icon. He might be the quarterback for America's team, but he's not a black icon like Lamar and Cam are for very unique reasons. Obviously, Andy Dalton, white quarterback. Sam Darnold, white quarterback. Kirk Cousins, white quarterback. Nobody has said shit about those quarterbacks not being vaccinated.
because the focus right now is on the Black community. The Black community is disproportionately like unvaccinated. So anyone who they know as a little bit of an elevated status, like in the Black community is facing a
So
huge amount of pressure,
so
to
now
go
my
in
point,
and
so
get
my
that
point with
job.
that is, so now you see the hypocrisy, because it was about supposedly about protecting the shield, making sure the season goes on, but you got multiple
Mm.
white quarterbacks who are not vaccinated. So why are y'all focused on the Black community? And then once again, so now why would the Black community have any reason to trust your intentions
Yeah,
at
people can
all?
see that. People can see that, man. People see through all that bullshit, man. At the end of the day, like I think they have the impression that people are a lot easier to manipulate, than they are. And don't get me wrong, when people are scared, they are actually easier to manipulate. So,
Of course,
and
yeah.
we've spent the last year and a half scaring the shit out of people, telling everyone how deadly this disease is without actually discussing any of the known ways that we can reduce our chances of winding up in the hospital. Like since the start of this pandemic, I've been following it and realized that, okay, sunlight is important because low vitamin D, is one of the main contributing factors to catching severe coronavirus. Exercise definitely helps because your immune system is working better. You're recycling the air, so air isn't just like sitting in your lungs. I'm plant-based, so I already know that eating more nutrients is going to improve it too. And now they recently came out with a study, probably about nearly a year ago, showing that people who are at least vegetarian or vegan have over 70% less chance likelihood of
That makes sense.
catching severe coronavirus. So it's like there's so many different things they could be talking about that they aren't talking about, and then they just keep coming back to the one thing. And I think a lot of folks in the Black community see through that. And then of course you have the Tuskegee experiment. Then of course you have a lot of the issues that have gone on in Black countries like Haiti, Africa, with tainted vaccines being given out all over the place. So it's like people want to pretend the reason why Black people aren't vaccinated is because they're uninformed, when it might actually be because they're more informed a lot of the time, and they just don't want to acknowledge that. So
That's facts. I
yeah,
mean, and that's really what it comes down to. And I
yeah,
mean, people forget the Tuskegee experiment is a very good example, because
yeah,
they started in the 30s, and it was the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. They got all these Black men claiming they were going to try to cure syphilis. The cure for syphilis was discovered in 47. It was treated with penicillin.
yeah,
They didn't stop the fucking experiments till 73.
yeah.
So they
Exactly. They were
had the
still
cure and still didn't give it to them, because the entire goal was actually to see the natural process of what uncured syphilis would look like.
yeah, exactly.
Over
And
time.
it's
And
not
so they
just
had a cure and still didn't give it to us.
yeah,
So like,
exactly.
why? So why you think Black once again so good? Ivermectin, interferon alpha 2b, hydroxychloroquine and zinc, which is being mostly used in Africa. Like, so yeah. So now you're in a situation once again, the Black community, where you're like, okay, so all these cures are out here, and y'all wouldn't let us have those. Y'all
Exactly.
literally could not go to your doctor and get ivermectin, could not go to your doctor and get hydroxychloroquine,
Mhm.
but they want to tell us it's because they care. This whole thing is
Yeah.
because they care.
Yeah, you have a lot of people that believe that the vaccine wasn't created for the virus, but the virus was created for the vaccine. Now, again, I don't want to, like get into all those, conspiracies and all that, because I don't have any evidence of that. But I do know for a fact that Fauci has definitely been a little bit shifty in the way he's been covering how he's been funding the coronavirus lab. So while I can't make any conclusive statements, we definitely know that the U.S. government was funding the same lab that this virus more than likely came out of. So
Yeah.
what was once a conspiracy theory, may turn out to
Which
be
is crazy
sort
to
of.
me. It's
So
crazy to me that was a conspiracy theory when all the numbers were right there. They're
yeah,
like right there. There was nothing conspiratorial about the NIH funding the Wuhan lab.
yeah,
Nothing at all. It was
yeah.
all the numbers were there, and people were like, "Man, that's kind of racist to say that it originated out of a lab." I'm like, "Well, hold on. Didn't we get that from the Chinese lab people that came out and were like, yeah, it came out of our lab?"
Yeah,
Because
there's
the Chinese
like,
people were racist against other Chinese people.
yeah, it's crazy because it's not racist to say, oh, them weird Asians over there eating bats and shit. But it is
Yeah,
racist to
right.
say, yeah, but it is racist to say that, oh, like it came from one of their labs. So it's like,
Or
it's
that it's
just,
not conspiratorial to say
yeah,
like it sounded so it sounded more normal to people like, yeah, man, somebody had bat soup and then they got COVID and now we in the pandemic, man. It's just how it goes sometimes. Like, hold up.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that actually sounds more possible than a lab or a virus being created in a bioweapons lab and being
Yeah,
potentially leaked on accident.
exactly.
I feel like the latter sounds much more realistic.
And if you look at where the world is going, like I swear, I was just reading an article, man, like yesterday, the day before. Now the latest thing scientists are working on is what do you call it? Like changing the DNA of plants to give to put mRNA vaccines in lettuce. So now it seems
That's
like,
fucking creepy. Why are
yeah,
y'all so obsessed with this gene therapy, bro? What the fuck?
yeah, like it's so weird, man. It's so weird
Man,
the
that's
way
okay.
the
I be growing
things
my own
going.
shit, cuz.
Exactly, man.
That's
I think that's
crazy.
definitely going to be a move. We got to focus on localizing production, as things move forward a little bit more. But so yes, so just to change gears, just a little bit. Now, one topic I've noticed, one topic I've been following for a long time, but when I speak to a fair amount of my friends, unfortunately, a lot of them don't really know too much about, is what's been happening with Julian Assange. So I've seen some of your coverage on it. I know where you stand on it, but just to kind of introduce the topic, can you give a brief background on who Julian Assange is and why
Mhm.
it's important that we not only familiarize ourselves with what's happening to him, but also start vocally supporting him and supporting him in other ways, just for the media to continue in a positive light. So can you shed some light on that?
So Julian Assange is an Australian expat that was a founder of WikiLeaks, the WikiLeaks that revealed that George W. Bush is a ridiculous, war criminal is probably a gross understatement of just how evil that man is, and it's not criminality is not a good description of the tragedies that the United States are responsible for, um, overseas and hell in some cases abroad, or
Genocidal
at home
maniac,
as
maybe.
well. Yeah, like literally
Genocidal.
genocide, literal fucking genocide, man.
Yeah.
So in between 2010 until 2014, 2015, Julian Assange actually uplifted and adored by liberal media because
Because
he
he was
revealed.
against George Bush.
Mhm. And Chelsea Manning was actually granted clemency because she was the one who actually initially worked with Julian Assange to reveal all that shit about George Bush.
Mhm.
Because they couldn't do anything with it. Like she didn't do anything wrong, technically
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah.
At least not to be in jail for as long as they were trying to keep her there. So between 2010 and 2014, unfortunately, he was arbitrarily arrested. And then, or at least he had charges arbitrarily pressed against him to the point where he had to go hide out in the Ecuadorian embassy after he was granted citizenship by their previous leftist president.
Yeah.
They spied on him. The U.S. government did. They spied on him. Put They put they tapped his bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Had got DNA from his son to prove it was his.
Mm.
Spied on his girlfriend. Spied on his
Wow.
mom. I mean, the way that he was treated was disgusting. Still, the charge they tried to accuse him of rape. It fell through, of course, because it was a bullshit charge. But
Yeah.
they said that he skipped bail on that charge that was dropped, and that's the excuse they used to arrest him, taking to Belmarsh prison in the UK, which is effectively their version of Guantanamo Bay, where
Mm.
he's being kept without sunlight, constantly put in solitary confinement. They try to force the vaccine on him multiple times. He does not want to take it. They keep trying to. So all of this is basically punishing him for exposing both the Clinton, the Bush administration, but then subsequently exposing Hillary Clinton while she was running for office, and
Mm-hmm.
then Barack Obama himself, where they realized that, oh, you're not partisan, you're not taking sides, you actually
Mm.
you're a genuine journalist.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now we have to make an example out of you. So they're not gonna kill him. They're gonna torture him so that no one else ever thinks about becoming, doing what he does ever
Yeah.
again. Now, unfortunately for them, it seems like they inspired more people to do what he does, at least to the degree that they have the ability to, rather than deterring people, because that what's happening to him is criminal. And what we've been seeing in our governments, the majority of these superpower governments around the world has been disgusting. And so, yeah, Julian Assange is somebody that inspired me to do what I do. He's one of the people that, like, whenever I'm going through it that day, and I, dealing with all this shit that we deal with, but also obviously being Black is a whole different aspect that I got to deal with. But as much trouble as I have to deal with, nothing I've done has put me in a position like what Julian Assange is in. So I can get over it. I can power through. I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the fact that, he was, like you said, the fact that he was willing to criticize both sides, that was actually, why they hated him so much. Because I think the last thing they want is people thinking critically and just not blindly joining one of the two teams. So if you're on the right, you can make accurate criticisms about the left. And if you're on the left, you can make accurate criticisms about the right without facing too much scrutiny from your own quote side. However, the moment you start actually criticizing your own side is when you get, marginalized and pushed off.
Hey, look, it wasn't the Roman Catholics that crucified Jesus. It was his own people. You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. and this is it wasn't Joan of Arc, man. People don't even know. It won't the English eventually were the ones who burned her at the stake, but it was Frenchmen from the previous regime that she helped to overthrow that were paid off by the UK. They kidnapped her and then they brought her to England to be. I mean, this is like a consistent theme throughout history. It's like nobody wants the corruption exposed by somebody from in that camp, because if you were from that camp, then you're going to give much more. You're going to give a much better perspective. It's almost like a level of like of elevated legitimacy and credibility, because you're like, damn, they're from there. They know like what this could mean. They're going to be isolated and ostracized, and they're still willing to call out their own camp. Like that makes you a problem. I mean, even the progressives and populists who decided to stand up to their party to some degree, they were all, they were destroyed throughout the entirety of the primary process. I mean, now granted, Trump won, but like people can't forget, they didn't, that was an ugly fight, bro. They did not want him to win. It was supposed to be the Ted Cruz, it was Jeb, Ted Cruz, or what's your boy's name? Marco, little punk ass.
Yeah, Marco.
It was supposed to be them. Trump comes out of nowhere and they attack him. And then, that to some degree, he was a nuisance because he, Mitt Romney and all those neocons like John McCain and Meghan McCain and all. You're like, bro, what? Y'all hate him too?
Yeah,
that's kind of weird.
And
y'all hate all the bad people. Y'all hate all people who are trying to do something that undermines the military-industrial complex. So that's the worst thing you can do, is be an enemy of your own team, or hold them accountable, or ask to hold them accountable.
I agree. And one of the funniest things about Trump right now, while I'm definitely no Trump supporter, because I do think, there's a lot of stuff, even in his history and, stuff that he was doing while he was president, I definitely don't support. One thing you can't deny is he definitely leaned more towards the anti-war side of things. He
was the first president in my lifetime that hadn't started any new wars.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing people don't realize is when he lost the election, he actually gave a directive to get all the troops pulled out of Afghanistan before he left office. But
fire people to make sure it happened.
Yes, but they purposely stalled it and disobeyed the commander-in-chief's orders directly to prolong it. So
what's crazy about that? So I remember reading an article. There was like, Trump is at odds with his staff over withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. I was like, fuck, they mean at odds. I don't know what the commander and chief mean. Two different, like, there's something, there's different meanings now. Where I'm the commander in chief. I'm the chief commander. I don't got to debate with y'all about shit. I'm doing it.
Exactly. Totally.
And he started firing people, and he even brought somebody in to make sure that it happened. But it was a big deal. He'd fire Pentagon members. They were trying to smear him in the media for wanting to pull out of Afghanistan. People forget that shit. So for his imperfections, bruh, the Trump presidency was not this shit, bruh. It was not this. Oh my God.
Like everyone talked about how authoritarian Trump was supposed to be. And sometimes I can understand why people are making that argument. However, even I didn't expect, Biden to go this far in the vaccine, mandate situation that he's gone.
I definitely did. I absolutely did.
I noticed
my homeboy literally hit me this morning. He was like, bruh, he said, I know I was talking shit before, but you warned us about this shit, bro. Oh my God. I was like, yeah. I said, motherfuckers like, nah, man, it can't be worse. You gotta get this man out because saying mean things, I'm like, bro, don't get me wrong, bro. Like, I get it. Some of the shit he said was racist, offensive, classic 70-year-old New Yorker old man shit. Like, that's what that's how they talk.
Like, so he didn't write the crime bill.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't write the crime bill. He might have, hell, if anything, he alleviated some aspects of it with that First Step Act. But then when I was telling people, I'm like, y'all don't get how bad Joe Biden is. And also, y'all don't understand how bad he's going to be whenever clearly the establishment has one preference over the other. So that means as bad as Donald Trump has been, they're literally telling the entire world, yeah, but he ain't bad enough for us.
Exactly.
Like, do you know how horrible that is? I mean, now we know.
Yeah.
But all the writing was on the wall, and the Trump derangement syndrome, and then the social media clout, and then the bullying and the fear mongering. All that shit played a crucial, pivotal role in people voting directly against their interests instead of saying, you know what, I'm not going to legitimize this election at all. The outcome is going to be whatever it's going to be, but I'm not going to contribute to to my own demise. What I am going to do is I'm going to challenge both of them from the moment they debate on that stage. Now, I don't care who wins. I'm not giving them no quarter regardless. I'm going to let them know what my demands are right now. And I'm going to assume that you're not going to do them, which means I'm going to be in your front yard. I'm going to be out in the streets. I'm going to be activating and organizing your entire presidency.
People should be loyal. Exactly. People should be loyal to policies instead of politicians. Because if people were loyal to policy, if people were loyal to the actual policies and the politics of it, then the politicians have to adjust to whatever policies it is the people are demanding. But because right now it's just a popularity contest and who we like, like the best. And to be honest with you, like Jimmy Dore, and you two, like you guys are some of the best at actually like vocalizing like the fact that a lot of these people will run on one thing and then as soon as they get there, completely change everything. And to be honest with you, I was an AOC stan. I was a huge AOC supporter, as she was running. And I thought, the fact that she won was, like a sign that, oh, there's definitely hope. I was excited when she won. A lot of people were, like Jimmy Dore was a big supporter of hers. He had her on the show, before she made it that big. And then he did what literally everyone else on the left has been trying to do to the quote unquote mainstream Democrats by pressuring her. And then all of a sudden they paint Jimmy Dore as the bad guy and people like you as the bad guy.
I've been getting attacked over AOC since 2019. 2019, bro. Because all I said was, well, hold on. If she's so concerned about, her about climate change, why not work with Tulsi on the OFF Act? Because like all these other organizations have signed on to it, like 400, and like that had never been achieved in the world, right? It's already there. It's an actionable piece of legislation. It was wonderful, man. Like everybody, it was like a unanimous agreement that this was the best climate change, but she never did. Tulsi told me directly, I've been trying to work with her and merge the Green New Deal and the OFF Act together, and she's not answering our office's calls.
Interesting. So I'm like, it's really just a show. That's what it
exactly looks like. Why wouldn't you do that if that's what you could? So I was very, very judicious and very charitable in my, me calling her out. But like, just like I was with Bernie, like just like I was with a lot of these people that now everybody can kind of see through. But like whenever I was doing it, it was like, oh, you're just seeking attention. You just want this. You just want. I'm like, no. I told y'all before I was only loyal to these policies, and that's it. Policy and consistency. That's all I care about. The moment that somebody is not consistent, then that's when they get called out. I don't know why, because they hear everybody else say that. I mean, not for nothing, they hear all these fucking white boys say that shit. and then it never happens. But and they think if those white boys ain't calling them out, then everybody can just ignore it, because I mean that's just kind of what they do. Yeah, man. A lot of the independent left and independent world in general, they suffer from white male mediocrity syndrome, where they just get lulled to sleep by all these mediocre ass white boys cashing a check and getting clicks, because they don't need any of the actionable change that a lot of us are fighting for. And if they don't say something, nobody hears it. And if I mean, I've been talking about AFRICOM, but not like just AFRICOM, but like actually specifically what's going on in specific countries. And I know people always get mad at me. Some leftists anyway get mad at me, because I'm like, look, I know that maybe on a militarily, like the United States doesn't have any moral high ground when it comes to China, but like you're erasing many Africans, African nations and Caribbean countries that have a significant issue with the way China seemingly comes in as soon as the United States either has an interest or just left or was interfering, and then they go in for these bilateral trade negotiations or bilateral economic pacts, when it's not really that. It looks like y'all just going in there playing good cop, bad cop.
Yep.
Is it really a choice if the only other option is to be obliterated by the US?
Yeah, not really. So you're kind of choosing between the lesser of two evils, and
exactly, because like China's not communist, bro. I'm sorry, it's not. It's capitalist with some communist elements. But like, I know it's not communist. Well, no, I know, because there's no such thing as a communist superpower under the imperialism of the United States. You see what we do to every other semi-communist nation since the 50s, 60s, and 70s, bro. No, you don't get to live. We instead we work with them. We send our jobs over there. We invest in labs over there. We give them money. Our economies are symbiotically intertwined.
And I'll be honest
with that China and the US are actually enemies, though.
And I'll be honest with you, sometimes, the way a lot of these accidental slip-ups happen, I almost wonder if the whole end goal of this situation is to export the social credit score, that system that they have in China, all over the world. Because if China becomes the main superpower, and they have this social credit score system already working straight, which is the ultimate way you can really control people, especially when you combine that with the vaccine passports, and all the way they're tying everything together. If they become the most dominant force in the world, and everyone has to bow to them, then that's one
of the reasons why you're seeing this crazy push against blockchain and crypto.
Interesting.
Because it came out of nowhere. They weren't expecting that shit.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of it threw a wrench in their plans, which is why everything kind of seems so rushed and sloppy.
Yeah. And blockchain is one of those things, right? Like I compare it to a gun, because a gun can be used to protect your family and, like to save someone's life, but a gun can also be used to commit murder. And blockchain, if it's used for something like vaccine passports, which is the main way they're talking about implementing it right now, that's how the Bill Gates and Rockefeller foundations
but that would give somebody the ability to actually remain more anonymous.
Oh, well, it depends on
that's why I know that they probably would do that. They've been trying to use blockchain for their own method, like for their own methods. Like, I don't know if you heard about the coin that Facebook tried to create, and they tried to manipulate the outcome, and it didn't work, because we're duh, we don't like you. Why would anybody buy it? Like, we don't trust you. And it was done. It was done. Like, it didn't last for 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months, excuse me.
Yeah, but it's one of those technologies. It has the power to literally change the way that value is created, in the economy. And to be honest with you, my true belief is, if you really educated both the people on the left and the people on the right about how blockchain works, and about how cryptocurrencies work, it's actually the perfect merger to kind of bring those two worlds together, because what it allows you to do is, number one, eliminate the corruption. Because while you're right, it can be used anonymously, it can also be used for 100% transparency. So
as it currently stands, I agree. And as it currently stands, there's no systemic economic racism or discrimination in the blockchain community. It can't be. All you see is numbers. There's no demographics. There's no regional, there's no red lines. There's none of that. You don't know
Exactly.
what somebody is or was or where their family came from. Do you got money
Exactly.
for this transaction? Did you invest smart? Did you save your money up? That money spends all the same.
Yep.
And it's Nigeria like made the people of Nigeria, I should say, made their stance on that shit known when they like undercut their government and still made it so that you can do day-to-day transactions with it. El Salvador, not an ally of the US, made Bitcoin a primary currency. Like, bruh, that's a
Yep.
big deal. And what are they
Cuba,
gonna
actually,
do?
Cuba just did
Sanction
it
El
last
Salvador.
week too.
I think they're adding like 11. It's not a big economy, but they're adding like 11 billion instantly to their economy just by converting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
insane,
exactly.
bro.
Because yeah, and the funny thing about it, right, as much as the powers that be may not like, some of the impact of it, it's one thing you have to remember. It is the newest technology, it's the most efficient technology, and it's the safest technology we
Facts.
have. And
Energy friendly too.
yeah, and there's no way that you can really stop the most efficient technology from winning out.
That's
And
facts.
that's what
Well,
and
when it's not centralized. Not when it's not
exactly,
centralized.
exactly.
Exactly.
And that's why I think, you actually are seeing more and more of these institutions, even ones that benefit from the dollar, kind of hop on board with the whole blockchain thing because I'm sure
Trying
you've
to
been
figure it
paying
out.
attention. Yeah, exactly. Because the
They're already
hyperinflation.
behind though. That's the crazy shit. Like
Yeah, yeah,
people didn't realize. So when I first invested in Bitcoin, so I was on
yeah.
the fence about it. And then in 2017, I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about how Bitcoin wasn't going to amount to anything. Anybody invested in it was an idiot. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go buy some Bitcoin now. Would y'all go out of y'all way to talk about some shit that's not
Yeah,
important? I see that shit every day. Y'all don't talk
yeah,
about the altcoins like that. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, excuse me. They don't talk about alternative coins in the way they talk about Bitcoins because Bitcoin is a primary threat.
yeah. So I was gonna say, even when it comes to like the altcoins, they all have their place in the ecosystem because the altcoins like Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, they all do things. Yeah, they all do things that Bitcoin can't because of the smart contracts, and that's one of the reasons why it can change the way value is created because it removes a lot of the need for middle management and it allows the people who are actually creating the value to retain the majority of the value created. So when it comes to Black creators, there's nothing better you could do for the music industry than really implement a blockchain supported system to ensure the artists themselves are fairly
Hey, and don't get it
compensated.
twisted.
Like, yeah.
A lot of these, you see a lot of these rappers spend a little bit more money than what they net worth say. Y'all
Yeah.
don't think they getting this Bitcoin money? Y'all are crazy, bro. Y'all are
Yeah.
crazy. They absolutely, bro. Some of these dudes worth 50, 60 million, and y'all would never know.
Yep.
And
Mm.
as you should not, it's their goddamn money. I'm against income tax because I'm a leftist, and income tax money goes to wars. So no.
And that's actually one of the most powerful things, right? Because with a blockchain system, if they implemented it at the government level, I don't know if you remember one of J. Cole's songs, I forget which one of his, but he was essentially talking about why can't I pick and choose where my tax dollars go? It's 2020, but my money is still being used to bomb Black and brown children overseas. Blockchain is the ultimate system to empower people to really fund the projects and the things they want to fund and ensure,
Facts.
that waste isn't being sent overseas. So that's
And
why I think it is the perfect merger between the right
so
and the left.
going back to what you said about it, the potential dangers of it, like the government could potentially
Yeah,
use blockchain in a way that they hide where their money is being spent.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Now, problem with that is they already do that. Like, so it's not like it fucking matters. Right.
yeah.
But like the problem is their own laws
The
make
Pentagon
it
doesn't
that they
get
have to
audited.
reveal certain expenditures. So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, we might not be able to track you through the blockchain and where it ends up. But like, first of all, people even within the blockchain community, they deduce things so fast because it's just the nature of the world. Like,
yeah,
yeah, you can be anonymous, but like when people see something going into the same address 3-4 times, that's like a red flag for
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
because like everybody can see it because you're on the blockchain, dumbass.
Exactly.
And you're like,
Exactly.
oh, this is the US government. And you have to change your wallet up every time and do all this extra shit to the point where everybody's going to know it's you because the US government is full of idiots. So it's
Yeah.
like, even with the benefits of blockchain, the minimal benefits of blockchain where the government could use it to their advantage. It's like, yeah, but ultimately you would still get figured out.
Yeah, exactly.
More benefits for us than it is for them, for sure. But that's why they want to do that. That's why they're trying to. That's why Biden just tried to pass that executive order, where he's trying to get the banks to report what every if it's a transaction over $600.
Yeah. Because they want to be able to track, where the money is coming from, who it's going to, when it's coming out of exchange.
Responsibly tax rich people. That's what it is, man. That's what he said it is. I'm like, hold up, but you just said you track it. You didn't even change the tax code. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's funny, man.
Just because they transferred it between accounts don't mean you can now tax them on it. They still got accountants.
Yeah, they're gonna try everything they can, man. So yeah,
that's for us. That's for poor people. They got too many poor people and working class people who made a lot of money this year that they don't know about. That's what that is. They're like, how is everybody okay with not going back to work? Don't even worry about that, dog. Don't even worry about that, man. We in Turks and Caicos right now. We just chilling. we on Indeed right now.
Yeah,
Turks and Caicos on the beach.
Sending in those applications, man. You already know. So get that VPN and you're straight. You can be anywhere you need to be. So
yeah, exactly. Shout out to the VPN gang. Shit.
Yeah,
I gotta head out here real soon, man. But wait, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we get up out here?
Yes, really quick. I actually did want to touch on one last topic that's gone a little bit under the radar. And it shows again how untrustworthy the media is in the way they've been kind of covering things. So I know you've been following this situation too about the OPCW report that was kind of been used to blame the gas attack on the Syrian government. And it also ties into Julian Assange because recently BBC had to retract an article they wrote about the OPCW report because they said that it was definitely the Syrian government. Meanwhile, WikiLeaks has never retracted anything, like they've put out there.
Track record so far still.
Yeah, exactly. So can you give a quick breakdown of what happened with that OPCW report and why it's just yet another example of why we can't really take what the media says at face value anymore?
Yeah, so the original OPCW report. So the OPCW is first of all, the organization under the United Nations that is responsible for tracking whether or not there's a chemical attack in any given country. The problem is the OPCW is actually under the United Nations Security Council, which is also known as the United States Security Council, because they run the show. So I don't know if you all remember, but Trump was he announced he was going to pull out the CIA from Syria. And shortly after that, all of a sudden there was a chemical weapons attack as Assad was about to be finished with ISIS, where there would be no reason for the United States to be in the country anymore.
That was under Obama, right?
No. This is 2017.
Oh, 2017? Happened again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So the United States would have had zero reason. Where the attack would have been like in his own, like where his supporters would be at. Right. So there was that. So there was nothing strategically advantageous that would cause him to attack his own people with chemical weapons, knowing that's the one thing that would spark an investigation into potential military retaliation.
That's the red line. Exactly. So, that's the red line that brings all the other international forces into the country. So why would you?
But especially the United States. Exactly. So one thing we always bring up. So why the hell would you do the one thing that would keep us there? The United States always says that we're there because we're fighting ISIS. That has nothing to do with Bashar al-Assad, except for then the moment that gas attack, the alleged gas attack happened, we didn't even investigate it. We just launched rockets immediately. Now, what was weird that day was that like ISIS was literally following behind the rocket attacks, like strategically, because like clearing with it's a common military strategy when your air support comes in and clears the area, and then your infantry goes through and sweeps. That's it's normal. So that's what it looked like was happening. And that's what it looked like for them to move in more on Assad and try to give them more of an advantage because indeed Assad was about to beat them. So it later gets out through WikiLeaks that an OPCW whistleblower is coming out and saying, showed and revealed the initial OPCW reports, which said it don't like there was no goddamn chemical weapons attack there. and there were no dead bodies there. They don't know where the hell they got that from.
Yes.
Now they then go like that shit blows up. And so basically the whole reason that Bashar al-Assad was called a brutal dictator was because of these alleged chemical weapons attacks. None of them have been proven yet. And now a couple of them have been completely, totally disproven, which once again makes you wonder, like, okay, is this just another example of them calling somebody who has some type of resource or path, because some countries are attacked not because of the resource they have, but because of where they're on the way to, which I think that's actually both with Syria. Like, is that why he's being called a brutal dictator? Because he don't give the United States all of his oil and all of his resources and complete control of his country? Because that's what it seems like, because he's one of the secular leaders in that region, and secular leaders in that region always get attacked.
Yep. It's crazy, man. And well said. And it's just another example to show how whenever there's an agenda to kind of get rid of someone or remove someone, things magically happen, things aren't questioned, and the media all leans in one direction without ever second guessing it. So
that's a fact, man. And look, I would say, like, one of the things that made me very, very, very I'm very, very meticulous about the way I cover any given leader. And I don't even try to do like passive coverage of a leader, like, or like ignore it, because like the last time I was passive on an issue, even though I didn't even have anywhere near large as a platform back then, was with the Gaddafi situation. And the world let him, the West specifically, let him be called a brutal dictator. And when we had all the information, if we chose to figure out that was a lie, like what was happening was Chad. There was a president in Chad who was installed by the United States, who was sending terrorists into Libya, and it would obviously force Gaddafi to retaliate. And they would say he was attacking his own people, reminiscent of what we're seeing right now with.
And he was pushing for a globalified African currency that was based on the
gold dinar. With the Arab countries too, with the secular Arab nations as well. But in addition to that, more importantly, so he was elected chairman at the time of the African Union. And a lot of people had no idea an African Union existed. And he was him and Nelson Mandela were like best friends. He was also very close to Fidel Castro. He was the one thing stopping slavery from persisting in Libya and from Africa from being overran. A lot of the shit that you're seeing right now, where these fake ass ISIS groups that are just, US puppets or Western puppets being paid to go there and destabilize nations, that shit won't even possible with Gaddafi there, because he had that shit on lock. And as soon as Gaddafi gets killed, at this point, we all know there was open market slavery brought back to Africa.
Yeah, it was the second wealthiest state in Africa before Gaddafi was removed, and now it's a failed state, since America went in there. So,
but supposedly they went there for humanitarian reasons. That's why they had to get Gaddafi out, right? Because of all the humanitarian. He was just such a cruel dictator that the government, the country couldn't survive if he was the president. As soon as he gets killed, multiple countries are immediately affected, obviously, including his own. So that being silent or not knowing enough and not being diligent enough on that particular issue kind of like left a bad taste in my mouth, like going forward. And so whenever I hear that dictator word get thrown out there, it's always like a red flag for me. Because if we know anything about the United States, we court dictators. We uplift them, we work with them, we buy weapons and sell weapons to them. We don't kill them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, if you even look at the American system, I mean, whoever's allowed to run as president, like it's usually you're choosing between two approved options. So you have the illusion of choice over here. So a lot of people would say, America, it's not really a dictatorship, but it's definitely an oligarchy. There's a class of people at the top who are.
I mean, it kind of is a dictatorship. Yeah, it's just a dictatorship. It's how we know it's a dictatorship, because we don't actually get a choice. We're the only country or the only country in the Americas, like all the Americas, that doesn't have a choice. If we like somebody, we cannot keep them in power.
That's true.
We're the only ones with term
limits. Plus the Electoral College, they could just decide to, certify whoever they want.
That, but like more so, like we're the only country with term limits as president. for a president.
That's true.
The last time we liked somebody, like they almost remember, we almost got Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace was president, but he would have been president until he died.
That's true.
And they know that.
And
That's
who
why they
was it?
changed the law.
And it was Teddy Roosevelt, right? He was he?
Oh yeah. You talking about no? Because FDR served for 4 terms.
Yeah, but it was after him. It was after him they brought in that law where a president can't.
Yeah, because Henry Wallace was supposed to remember. Henry Wallace was his VP. He was a socialist. He was saying he was going to desegregate the country. He wasn't going to help UK maintain their African colonies no more. He was just on a rampage, like, yeah, man, woo, I can't, boy, I get up in this bitch, ooh, turn it out. And they cheated him, put in Truman instead. So instead of that, what we got is the atomic bomb. You know, we got the Cold War because they lied about the Yalta Conference to Truman and made him tell him that Stalin was trying to play him about the Eastern Bloc, you know, all the countries that he was entitled, all the territory that he was entitled to, because of the casualties he took during the war. You know, they created. I mean, segregation lasted way longer than it was supposed to. You get, you know, Stalin being called a dictator by the CIA. Turns out that was a lie. CIA ended up admitting it later. He was never a dictator. The reason that the region was poor was because we did the same thing in the USSR as we did to every other country that we do now. Venezuela, what do? Oh, you're rich, so now you're gonna be poor. We're gonna sanction you into oblivion, and then the people will then overthrow you. So we don't have to. We might put some bad actors and ops, you know, along the way to kind of assist that along, like they did with the intelligentsia in the USSR. But the USSR, it was not a dictatorship. It just wasn't. But the United States had that much control over the propaganda and the narrative. And one decision changed that, which was the vice president that was supposed to take over didn't. Everybody was perfectly fine with it. And then some of the worst tragedies in U.S. history happened back to back after that shit.
Got it. Well, I'll be honest, I don't know too much about the USSR history, so I can't really comment on that part, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah. So, but anyway, Niko, you know, I definitely want to thank you for your time. It's been, you know, a great conversation. You had a lot of important topics, and I hope to bring you back on the show one of these days, man. So
definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation, man. I appreciate you.
Yes. Let's do it. Have a good day, man. Be in touch.
You too, bro.